Would all members please rise for the playing of the national anthem? And I ask all members of the gallery, if able, if you could rise as well. You may be seated. Order. Daily routine, presenting and reading petitions. I recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And before I do that, may I make an introduction?
Please do.
Thank you. In the number of outstanding advocates, residents along the Prospect Road communities. So if I'll name them and then they can stand and receive the warm welcome of the House. First, we'll start actually with my constituency coordinator, I guess we can say now. Raisa Musial, if you could rise. And we have Wayne Paddock, we have Dana Giles, Donna Pettipaw, and Michael Lamplou. So these are some of the most outstanding constituents that have been working really hard on behalf of the Prospect Road communities to try to get some more upgrades to the road in and out. So if you could just give them the round of applause of the House.
Welcome, welcome to the House. We hope you enjoy your time here. I recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to table a petition from residents from the Prospect communities, the operative clause of which reads, "We, the undersigned, residents of the Prospect communities, urgently call upon the Minister of Public Works to address the critical need for additional infrastructure, allocate capital funding, and implement the recommendations of the traffic study to incorporate new exit from Prospect Road to Highway 103 to protect the safety and well-being of Prospect Road residents." There are approximately 2,073 signatures on the petition, and I've affixed my signature to the petition as required by Rule 63.5 in the House.
The petition is tabled. I recognize the honourable member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Thank you, Speaker. I beg leave to introduce a petition, the operative clause, which reads, whereas the government was elected, Nova Scotians' power bills have increased by more than $400 per year, and whereas the power company has applied for an 8% rate increase over 2 years, just months after their massive data breach, saw the sensitive personal information of customers, including social insurance numbers, compromised. And whereas the government needs to protect people's private information and help lower soaring power costs, therefore we, the undersigned, call on the Nova Scotia government to pass legislation that will lower people's power costs and protect people's private information. There are 14 signatures here affixed, and I've affixed my own signature as per the rules of the House.
The petition is tabled. presenting reports of committees. Tabling reports, regulations, and other papers. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Environment.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to table an article in my capacity as Minister of Service Efficiency, an article from the Chronicle Herald by Glenn MacDonald, dated September 25th, 2025, Cutting Through the Red Tape, what Nova Scotia's Making Business Easier Act aims to achieve. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The report is tabled. I recognize the Honourable Member for Fairview Clayton Park.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I beg leave to table 200 emails from residents of Nova Scotia stuck in the backlog of the provincial nominee program.
The papers are tabled. Statements by ministers. I recognize the Honourable Minister of African Nova Scotia Affairs.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise with sorrow and with a heavy heart to mark the passing of the Honourable Donald H. Oliver, KC, a son of Nova Scotia whose life stretched far beyond its shores. As the first African Nova Scotia man in the Senate of Canada, he carried the weight of our history into that chamber. He carried our voices, our struggles, our triumphs, and he carried them with dignity, with courage, with unyielding grace. Yet before the titles, before the marble halls, he was already shaping community, already building what could last. He helped give us the Black Cultural Center, a place where the stories of African Nova Scotians are preserved so that our children may know who they are and where they came from. Senator Oliver's life reminds us of something very essential. The well-being of Nova Scotia cannot be cut away from the well-being of African Nova Scotians, nor from the people of African descent who have contributed to the strength and beauty of this province. Senator Oliver's leadership opened doors. His mentorship created paths, and his vision still lights the road ahead. As Minister of African Nova Scotian Affairs, I say to our communities, Senator Oliver's legacy is alive in us. To honor him is to honor each other. To remember him is to stand as he stood, a steadfast in justice, generous in compassion, certain that none of us can rise unless we rise together. Madam Speaker, the truth remains. The future of this province will only be strong if we choose to work as one. On behalf of African Nova Scotian Affairs and the government of Nova Scotia, I offer our deepest condolences to Senator Oliver's family, his friends, and all who were shaped by his vision. May his example command us to keep building the world he knew was possible. After any response, I would ask that we stand for a moment of silence. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax Needham.
Madam Speaker, earlier this week, one of our kings has gone on to glory, the Honourable Donald H. Oliver. He was a lawyer, educator, and a retired senator. Senator Oliver was the first African Nova Scotia man appointed to the Canadian Senate, where he served with distinction for 23 years. Throughout his years representing the people of Nova Scotia, he championed issues of human rights, equity, diversity, economic prosperity, and empowerment. Senator Oliver was a man of integrity and was known for his commitment to creating opportunities for others, always trying to break down barriers. A significant figure in the Nova Scotian social justice movement and a founding director of the Nova Scotia Black Cultural Center, he was a key leader in the African Nova Scotian community. Senator Oliver said his greatest desire was to see a more tolerant Canada, where the concept of equality is first and tolerance and acceptance are all a part of the fabric of Canada. His contribution to public service law and equity in Canada are immeasurable. Let us honor his legacy of possibility, progress, and hope for the Black community and for all Canadians. His life stands as a testament that change is not only necessary, but possible when guided by conviction and justice. Together with all members of this House, I extend condolences for his family, close friends, and all who were touched and inspired by his extraordinary life. May he rest in power.
I recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and it's a pleasure to rise again to speak about my friend and a friend of others in the House. And much has been said about the accomplishments of former Senator Don Oliver, outstanding legal career, the integrity, and all that he did to pave the way for future Nova Scotians and Canadians. But I want to add the human element. He was a decent human being and a family man. He was adored by his family. I was lucky to know and grow up with some of his niece and nephews, and then got to know him before I entered politics and was able to engage with him on equity issues and issues around forestry, which he was passionate about as well. But I think in this day and age of politics, where sometimes it could seem mean-spirited, I think he serves as a great example of what politics can be, working together across party lines and working in true collaboration. He was a true gentleman, and I think what the definition of a statesperson is. So for that, happy to add a few more words. And I think what defined Don Oliver was that, and I think all of us should consider, is that it's not just what you do, it's how you treat people. And he certainly was known as someone who treated people as much as he would treat his own family, and in politics too. So I saw him show up to Jim Cowan's ceremony when he retired from the Senate, for example. He had friends across the floor. And so I think I just want to make sure that current politicians and aspiring politicians are aware that politics can be different, and Senator Oliver certainly exemplified that as much as anybody. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Please rise for a moment of silence. You may be seated. Government notice of motions. I recognize the Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Before I present my resolution, I beg leave to make an introduction.
Please do.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This morning in your gallery, we are joined by Peter White, Vice President of Nova Scotia Federation of Anglers and Hunters. Mr. White has been a hunter, angler, and trapper for over 40 years. So welcome, welcome, Mr. White. Also in your gallery, Madam Speaker, we have Sonia and Barry Landry. Thank you. Good friends in Nova Scotia. Steve Taylor, David Borden, Joel Carroll, Ed Fudge, Brandon Harvey, Jonathan McKenzie, and young Evan McKenzie. They're all hunting enthusiasts, Madam Speaker, and I'm pleased to have these folks join us today as government announces changes to our hunting regulations, which will provide more opportunities for Nova Scotians to hunt, while keeping safety a priority and making it easier for families to hunt together. So I thank them for joining us, and I ask the House to offer them a warm welcome, please.
Welcome to the House. We hope you enjoy your time here. I recognize the Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Whereas Nova Scotia is a beautiful province, rich in wildlife and natural resources that we are managing responsibly for the benefit of all Nova Scotians, and whereas our province enjoys a rich and historic tradition of hunting and fishing, not only as a sport and recreation, but also as a sustainable sector providing food and jobs in rural Nova Scotia, and whereas our government is creating more opportunities for Nova Scotians to hunt and support wildlife management with an additional week to hunt deer, 11 more Sundays to hunt, and lowering the minimum age to hunt deer and bear so more young people can learn safety, skills, and wildlife stewardship while enjoying family time outdoors. Therefore, be it resolved that with the general deer season soon getting underway, all members of this House join me in wishing Nova Scotians over 35,000 hunters a safe and successful season. Madam Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for a waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. It is agreed. Would all those in favor of the motion please say aye? Aye. Contrary-minded, nay? The motion is carried. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Emergency Management.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day, I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas hurricane season spans from June 1st to November 30th in Nova Scotia, with the potential for storms to cause flash flooding, damage homes and communities, and disrupt power grids and access to running water. And whereas residents should be prepared to be self-sufficient for at least 72 hours in case of a hurricane, including having a fully stocked emergency kit for your family members and pets, downloading the Nova Scotia Alert app, and clearing and securing loose objects around the outside of your property. And whereas we have seen, even just in the last few years, how serious these storms can be, highlighting the fact that personal preparedness is everyone's responsibility, and it will make a difference should you ever find yourself in an emergency. Therefore, it be resolved that all members of this House recognize the importance of being prepared for hurricane season by creating a family emergency plan, downloading the Nova Scotia Alert app, and having an emergency kit assembled following the useful information found on the Department of Emergency Management's website. Madam Speaker, I ask for waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for a waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. It is agreed. Would all those in favor of the motion please say aye? Aye. Contrary-minded, nay? The motion is carried. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Acadian Affairs and Francophonie.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Before I begin my notice of motion, I beg leave to make a few introductions.
Please do.
Merci. In your gallery today, Madam Speaker, we have a number of guests from the Acadian and Francophone community that I'd like to introduce that are here today for part of Équipe Acadie. We have Denise Como-Desautels, who's the chair, présidente de la Fédération acadienne de la Nouvelle-Écosse. Vincent Amana, executive director, directeur général de l'Association des juristes d'expression française de la Nouvelle-Écosse. Lisette Aucoin-Bourgeois, executive director, directrice générale de la Société Saint-Pierre. Laurie Martin Murani, directrice générale, executive director of the Conseil Jeunesse Provinciale. Atika Bayeban, president, chair of the Fédération des femmes acadiennes de la Nouvelle-Écosse, as well as executive director and directrice générale du Centre communautaire Étoile de l'Acadie. So thank you very much. Merci beaucoup de vous joindre à nous aujourd'hui. I'd ask them to rise to receive the warm welcome of the House.
Welcome to the House, and we hope you enjoy your time here. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Acadian Affairs and Francophonie.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. En date ultérieure, je demanderai l'adoption de la résolution suivante, attendu que la Fédération acadienne de la Nouvelle-Écosse, la FAN, est un organisme à but non lucratif fondé en 1968 est composée de 29 membres provinciaux, sectoriels et régionaux qui représentent collectivement les priorités de la communauté acadienne et francophone de la Nouvelle-Écosse. Et attendu que la FAN et ses organismes membres jouent un rôle essentiel dans la croissance et le développement continu de la communauté acadienne et francophone grâce à ses collaborations dans divers secteurs, notamment le développement culturel et linguistique en français. Et attendu que la FAN a contribué au succès de la deuxième édition du mois du patrimoine acadien lancé à Chéticamp, mettant en valeur la force et la résilience du peuple acadien et des francophones, ainsi que la nouvelle version de la loi sur les services en français modifiée l'année dernière. Par conséquent, qu'il soit résolu que tous les membres de l'Assemblée législative se joignent à moi pour saluer et remercier la Fédération acadienne de la Nouvelle-Écosse et ses 29 organismes membres pour leur engagement en faveur de la préservation de la vitalité et du dynamisme des communautés acadiennes et francophones de la Nouvelle-Écosse. Madame la Présidente, je demande l'adoption de cette résolution sans préavis et sans débat. Madam Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas la Fédération acadienne de la Nouvelle-Écosse, or FAN, is a non-profit organization founded in 1968 and is comprised of 29 provincial, sectoral, and regional organizations who collectively represent the priorities of the Acadian and Francophone community of Nova Scotia. And whereas FAN and its member organizations are key partners in ensuring the continued growth and development of the Acadian and Francophone community through collaborations in various sectors, including cultural and French language development. And whereas FAN contributed to the success of the second annual Acadian Heritage Month launched in Chéticamp, showcasing the strength and resilience of Acadians and Francophones, as well as strengthening the revised French Language Services Act amended last year. Therefore, be resolved that all members of the House of Assembly join me in acknowledging and thanking la Fédération acadienne de la Nouvelle-Écosse and its 29 member organizations for their commitment towards preserving the vitality and dynamism of Nova Scotia's Acadian and Francophone communities. Madam Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. It is agreed. Would all those in favor of the motion please say aye? Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The motion is carried. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Service Nova Scotia.
Madam Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Nova Scotians want and deserve a government that is responsive, transparent, and accountable. And whereas the province managed a record-breaking volume of Freedom of Information requests in 2024-25 and completed 89% of them on time, one of the highest rates in Canada. And whereas the number of requests under the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act reached more than 3,800, an increase in 15% from 2023-24. That is the highest number of applications submitted to the government in the 30 years that this legislation has been in place. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of this legislature recognize September 23rd to September 29th, 2025 as Right to Know Week in the province of Nova Scotia. Madam Speaker, I ask for waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. It is agreed. Would all those in favor of the motion please say aye? Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The motion is carried. Introduction of bills. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act Respecting Energy, the Powering Our Offshore Act.
The Honourable Minister of Energy begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act Respecting Energy.
Bill 149, an act respecting energy.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. I recognize the Honourable Attorney General and Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act Respecting the Right of Access to Records of Public Bodies and the Right of Privacy with Respect to Personal Information Held by Public Bodies.
The Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Justice begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act Respecting the Right of Access to Records of Public Bodies and the Right of Privacy with Respect to Personal Information Held by Public Bodies.
Bill 150, an act respecting the right of access to records of public bodies and the right of privacy with respect to personal information held by public bodies.
Ordered that the bill be read on a second time on a future day. I recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This one's for my pal Wayne up in the gallery, who I've already introduced. I beg leave to table a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 31 of the Acts of 1996, the Sales Tax Act respecting veterinary services.
The honourable member for Timberley Prospect begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 31 of the Acts of 1996, the Sales Tax Act, respecting veterinarian services.
Bill 151, an act to amend Chapter 31 of the Acts of 1996, the Sales Tax Act, respecting veterinary services.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to table a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 217 of the Revised Statutes 1989, the Income Tax Act, respecting the basic personal amount. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Cumberland North begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 217 of the Revised Statutes 1989, the Income Tax Act, respecting the basic personal amount.
Bill 152, an act to amend Chapter 217 of the Revised Statutes 1989, the Income Tax Act, respecting the basic personal amount.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to table a bill entitled An Act Respecting Used Vehicle Sales. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member from Cumberland North begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act Respecting Used Vehicle Sales.
Bill 153, an act respecting used vehicle sales.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to table a bill entitled An Act to Improve the Collection of Data and Statistics Respecting Rural Areas. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Cumberland North begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Improve the Collection of Data and Statistics Respecting Rural Areas.
Bill 154, an act to improve the collection of data and statistics respecting rural areas.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. I recognize the honourable member for Yarmouth.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to introduce a bill, an act to amend Chapter 228 of the Acts of 1920, an act to incorporate the Yarmouth Golf and Country Club.
The honourable member of Yarmouth begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 228 of the Acts of 1920, an act to incorporate the Yarmouth Golf and Country Club.
Bill 155, an act to amend Chapter 228 of the Acts of 1920, an act to incorporate the Yarmouth Golf and Country Club.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. Notices of motions. Statements by members. I recognize the honourable member for Dartmouth South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize the leadership of Autism Nova Scotia at a time when harmful and misleading rhetoric about autism is circulating beyond our borders. When public figures in the United States have spread misinformation, Autism Nova Scotia has continued to serve as a trusted, evidence-based voice here at home. They have safeguarded the dignity of autistic people and have worked tirelessly to foster understanding, acceptance, and inclusion across our province. I ask all leaders in this House and beyond to join me in rejecting misinformation, to continue advancing greater acceptance and stronger supports for autistic and neurodiverse Nova Scotians, and to celebrate the leadership of Autism Nova Scotia.
I recognize the honourable member for Sydney, member 2.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm rising on my feet today just because tomorrow, for rugby fans across our province and beyond, Team Canada has made the World Final, and they're playing England tomorrow in front of a record-breaking 82,000 people. So it's a pretty amazing story to think about when you think about how Canada got there and what the journey they've been on. But what a great opportunity for the players. We're all very proud of the women's rugby team, and I just want to rise my place to wish them the best and encourage anyone to tune in, support Canada. What a moment it is for our country. It's expected to be an outstanding match, and as I said, in front of over 80,000 people. So I rise my place. Let's go, Canada. Yeah.
I recognize the honourable member for Glace Bay Dominion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as we travel along this river of life, our relationships form who we become and who we are. Some relationships play out like ripples on the surface of the water, and some change the current. Sometimes, if you're really lucky, you meet that person that causes the river to cut into the riverbank and change directions, forge in a new way. Well, Madam Speaker, 33 years ago today, Junie did that to me with the words, "I do." Got you now. Madam Speaker, with those two small words, Junie gave me a life that I never dreamt was possible for me. I really shouldn't have. She helped me believe in myself to chase my own education. She provided two beautiful, well-educated daughters that are the world to us, and a lifetime of cherished memories. I got to say, I tell a lot of people there's two handprints on my back. And I don't know if it's Junie pushing me forward or catching me when I fall backwards. But either way, she's the nourishment in my river of life. And today is her anniversary, so happy anniversary, Junie. Love you, buddy.
Happy anniversary, Junie, and of course the honourable member. I recognize the honourable member for Fairview Clayton Park.
Ooh. Thank you, Speaker. I beg leave to make an introduction.
Please do.
Thank you. In your gallery today, we have Fatma Adam and Abdel Karim Musa, if you could stand, who are going to be the subjects of my member statements. They're outstanding members of the Sudanese Canadian community and great entrepreneurs.
Welcome to the house. We hope you enjoy your time here. I recognize the honourable member for Fairview Clayton Park.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I rise today to celebrate the entrepreneurial spirit and cultural contributions of Musa and Family Designs, a Sudanese-owned fashion business right in Fairview. Founded in 2019 by Musa and Fatma Adam, who recognized the need for multicultural clothing options in the area, this business is a testament to their hard work, talent, and creativity. Musa and Family Designs offers a wide range of apparel and accessories from modest clothing, prom dresses, suits, national African clothing, blazers, hijabs, anything you can really possibly think of. They also provide custom designs, expert tailoring, and dry cleaning. Musa and Family Designs is more than just a business, it's a valuable part of our community's fabric. Offering unique fashion and cultural apparel that serves the diverse needs of its customers. I ask all members to join me in recognizing this business for its contributions to our local economy, to our community, and to pay them a visit if you can. Thank you, Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to recognize the extraordinary dedication and community spirit demonstrated by Dana Giles, Rita Mae Schwartz, Donna Pettipaw, Barb Allen, and Michael Lamplou for their efforts to gather signatures for a petition requesting the allocation of capital, implementing recommendations, and releasing the Prospect Road traffic study. Recommendations from the study, once released, are intended to ensure our transportation network supports sustainable growth, mitigates safety risk, and enhances connectivity for all who live, work, and visit the region. To secure our community's voice, Probe and dedicated countless hours to engage with neighbors, explaining the importance of the study and encouraging active participation. Their tireless commitment resulted in an impressive collection of signatures reflecting the widespread desire for transparency and public input as transportation decisions are made. Their actions exemplify the very best of community advocacy, working together for safer roads, responsible development, and a brighter future for Prospect Road and in the surrounding communities. Please join me in thanking Dana, Rita Mae, Donna, Barb, and Michael, and all those that were involved in creating such a successful petition, over 2,000 signatures, for their contribution, and for reminding all of us the power of civic engagement. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Victoria the Lakes.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, before I begin my statement, I beg leave to make an introduction.
Please do.
Join us today in your gallery. I am honored to introduce a remarkable woman who I am proud to call my friend, Nancy Smith. Nancy, can you please stand and receive a warm welcome from our MLAs?
Welcome, Nancy. Welcome to the host. We hope you enjoy your time here. I recognize the honourable member for Victoria the Lakes.
Madam Speaker, today I rise to recognize my dear friend, Nancy Smith, who is also a second cousin to my husband, Brian. Nancy is a lifelong, cherished volunteer in her community of North Shore. She is devoted mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. But if you ask anyone in her family or community, they will tell you, Nancy is not your typical grandmother. She fished for more than 25 years, and after the passing of her husband, Dennis, she continued on as captain. Nancy has served as a first responder and an active member of the North Shore Volunteer Fire Department for more than 30 years. She was also the first female volunteer fire chief in Nova Scotia. As well, Nancy remains active in her church, the local health center, and the War Memorial Committee. Nancy is currently serving as the president of the Victoria the Lakes PC Association and was a key supporter in both my and Keith Bain's election campaigns. Madam Speaker, I ask all members of the Legislative House, please join me in recognizing Nancy. Outstanding leadership, tireless service, and the compassion she brings to her community. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise today in solidarity with the teaching assistants, researchers, and part-time instructors of CUPE Local 3912 employed at Dalhousie, St. Mary's, and Mount St. Vincent Universities. Dal and St. Mary's members have voted overwhelmingly to strike, and members at the Mount voted yesterday on the same question. At our universities, scores of staff must renegotiate their contracts each semester and face the constant fear that they may not be re-signed. They do much of the same work as tenured professors, but without the same benefits of stability or employment. To make matters worse, many of these academic workers are among Canada's lowest paid in the sector, despite our tuition fees ranking among the highest in the country. Speaker, I ask that all present join me in calling on our universities to recognize the value of these essential workers and avert further job action. Those who are so integral to higher education in our province deserve conditions commensurate with their expertise and passion and the stability to do the work they love with confidence.
I recognize the honourable member for Sydney, member 2.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I get to do this every year, and I get to do it for the 11th year. This past week, a little girl turned 11. Yay. Emily Sarah Mumberket, she turned 11. She was hanging out with her buddies. Dad couldn't be home, but she had a good time. Anyway, I rise to my place to tell my daughter I love her. She's a great big sister to Allie, and they're all a reflection of their mother. So they're the best. I just sit back and watch it all happen. So I rise to my place, Madam Speaker, to recognize Emily. Recognize her 11th birthday and just say how proud I am of her for all that she does for everyone and that heart of gold that she has. So happy birthday, Emily. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Happy birthday, Emily. I recognize the honourable member for Pictou Centre.
Madam Speaker, tomorrow, September 27th, we will proudly celebrate the induction of Stellarton native Art Fitt into the Nova Scotia Country Music Hall of Fame. A fitting honor for a man whose music and heart have touched so many. A lifelong and well-known musician, he has brought joy to countless audiences with his talent, charm, and genuine connection to people. Beyond the stage, Art dedicated 13 years to public service in Stellarton as both town councillor and mayor. His leadership helped shape our community, from developing sports complexes and recreational facilities to improving infrastructure. He led with vision, always putting the needs of residents first. Perhaps his most lasting legacy is his work as an addictions counselor. With compassion, patience, and unwavering dedication, he mentored and supported hundreds of people, guiding them towards hope and recovery. Art has been and remains a man of the people, a leader, a mentor, a musician, and a friend to all who know him. Stellarton and indeed Nova Scotia is a better place because of him. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Needham.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to recognize Ms. Rosella Fraser for her unwavering support in our communities. This week, she will be celebrating her last day of work with HRM Rec, serving 39 years. In those years, she held roles that supported our communities in the north end of Halifax and in North Preston. I met Rosie many years ago when I was a young person in church, and she helped young people like ourselves learn to love community and not be afraid to volunteer in community. When I was old enough to work, one of my first jobs was with Rec. And Rosie was there as a support to guide us and give us gems to help us through life. With her calm presence and soft voice, Rosella has been a beacon of hope, and I am thankful for her service. I would like all members of this House to join me in celebrating our Black Queen, Rosella Fraser, and thank her for her many years and commitment to our communities. Happy retirement.
I recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to remember Elizabeth Iona McKenna from Beachville, who distinguished herself both in athletics and the arts. Elizabeth could often be found on the local basketball court perfecting her jump shot or twirling her baton as part of her majorette corps. Her talent earned her the esteemed title of Halifax Miss Majorette, and she made history as the first Black Miss Halifax, a testament to her trailblazing spirit and her commitment to breaking barriers. She attended SMU, graduated in 1979 with a Bachelor of Arts, and was key player on the 1976-77 women's basketball team that clinched the Atlantic University Athletic Association Championship, a team whose remarkable achievements were honored with induction to the St. Mary's Sport Hall of Fame in 2024. Elizabeth's extraordinary contributions to sport and community will continue to be celebrated as her enduring legacy is further recognized through her upcoming induction into the Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Fame herself in class of 2025. Elizabeth's life was one of service, excellence, and inspiration. She leaves behind a legacy that will long be cherished by her family, friends, and the wider Nova Scotia community. May her memory inspire us all to lead with compassion, break new ground, and uplift those around us. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Truro, Bible Hill, Millbrook, Salmon River.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to recognize the Truro Fire Service on the historic renaming of their fire station to the George Jones Memorial Fire Station. Unveiled on June 25th, this tribute honors the legacy of George Jones, a black barber and a visionary community leader who united residents in forming Truro's first bucket company in 1860. From his Queen Street barbershop, Jones fostered a spirit of service and cooperation that laid the groundwork for today's modern fire service in Truro. This renaming not only celebrates his enduring contributions, but also recognizes the profound and lasting impact of African Nova Scotian communities in Nova Scotia. This tribute is a proud and meaningful milestone that reminds us of the strength found in community leadership and shared purpose. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier.
Postal workers are back on strike after the federal government told Canada Post to make some major changes to the way it delivers mail, like stopping door-to-door deliveries and closing some rural postal offices. I stand in solidarity with the postal workers and the Canadian Union of Postal Workers. Door-to-door delivery is essential, and rural post offices play a vital role in our communities. I am proud to stand with Cup W. Thank you. Solidarity.
I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We all know the importance of protecting the Chignecto Isthmus, but we don't often talk about the important history of that area. The name Chignecto is a European adaptation of the Mi'kmaq term for a much larger region, Signatuck, the drainage area that extends from the Cobequid Highlands to the eastern edge of the Wallastuck River, St. John River drainage area, and north to the Baie de Chaleur. The isthmus at the center of that district is a resource-rich marshland traversed by rivers and portage routes that link the Bay of Fundy to the Gulf of St. Lawrence and further to major river routes leading to the interior of the continent. Madam Speaker, this area has much rich history for both our Indigenous people as well as those that have immigrated here. And I look forward to seeing this area recognized. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Colchester, Musquodoboit Valley.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to pay tribute to the Royal Canadian Legion Branch Number 70 in Stewiacke. Organized in 1945 before the end of World War II, with their first meeting held at the Union Hall, this year they are celebrating their 80th year of operation. The branch is located at 299 George Street in Stewiacke, where they've been since its opening on November 11th of 1952. According to the Town of Stewiacke Centennial Project, there were 14 charter members. And like all legions, the Stewiacke branch provides a number of services to the community. Firstly, being an advocate for veterans benefits and support for the military and RCMP, they also promote education and remembrance of our military heritage. As well, a variety of social activities are held at the Legion, along with fundraising for its members and local residents, bringing a sense of community to the forefront. I ask all members to join me in wishing the Stewiacke Legion, branch number 70, a happy 80th anniversary. We wish you continued success as you serve our community with such valuable services. Thank you, Madam
I I recognize the honourable member for Dartmouth North.
Madam Speaker, a lot goes into organizing our annual Dartmouth North Pride Party, baking cupcakes, recruiting volunteers, building the perfect queer anthem playlist, and keeping the hot dogs coming for all the hungry attendees. But the hardest job of all has to be that of the celebrity bingo caller. North Dartmouthians are some of the kindest people you will ever meet, but when it comes to bingo, all bets are off. As a special celebrity guest this year at this year's Pride Party, Dartmouth North resident and queer activist J. Aaron Roy rose to the task of keeping the bingo games under control. His sense of positivity and infectious smile light up every room he is in, even the most cutthroat of bingo halls. When not calling bingo at Pride parties, Jay is the owner of Cape and Cowl Comics, where he has created a beautiful, supportive space for queer youth to feel safe and be themselves. His positive impact on our city and province is immeasurable. I would ask the House to join me in thanking J. Aaron Roy for his advocacy, kindness, and excellent bingo calling skills.
I recognize the honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today I want to recognize and thank the Alzheimer's Society of Nova Scotia, and in particular their support of the Caregiver Support Group in Amherst. The third Monday of each month, the group meets for 2 hours at the Trinity St. Stephen's United Church, where those cared for a loved one with dementia can share their experiences and offer encouragement to others. I recently had the opportunity to meet with Roseanne Burke, manager of advocacy for the Alzheimer's Society, who shared the information of the work that they are doing. Dementia of any type presents a long and difficult journey, and the work of the association in offering education and support services can be instrumental in helping families and individuals. Madam Speaker, please join me in thanking the Alzheimer's Society of Nova Scotia, as well as all those who organize local support groups like the one we have in Amherst. Let us also encourage and sincerely thank the hundreds of caregivers across the province who love and care for those with dementia. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Bedford Basin.
Thank you, Speaker. I would like to make some introductions before I begin my statement.
Please do.
Thank you very much. Joining us in the gallery today, we have Bahesh Kumar Walan. We have Hassam, better known as Sam Al-Said. We have Mahesh Valand. We have Mishu Maland. And we have, did I miss one? No, Prabhash Parak. Parash. They are all from the Big Mustache Barbershop. So please welcome them to our house.
Welcome to the house. We hope you enjoy your time here. I recognize the honourable member for Bedford Basin.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise today to recognize Kumar Waland and Sam Syed. Kumar is originally from India and came to Nova Scotia in 2017 to study at Dalhousie University. Sam is originally from Syria and came to Canada in 2016 with his family. Together they opened the Big Mustache on September of 2019. The Big Mustache shop is now the largest men's grooming chain in Nova Scotia, with 6 locations across HRM. Kumar and Sam have been honored with 2 major awards, Immigrant Entrepreneurs of the Year and Asian Heritage Entrepreneur of the Year. Big Mustache has recently announced plans to launch Barber Academy. This is a certification course that teaches professional barbering skills, and they will work to fill the gap in the availability of talent. I ask members of the House to join me in congratulating Sam, Kumar, and all our guests, including congratulating them on opening one in Sunnyside Mall, where I go. We wish them all the best with their future expansions. Thank you, Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Fairview Clayton Park.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I rise today to speak about a critical failure in the Nova Scotia nominee program that is hurting our healthcare system and abandoning workers who want nothing more than to serve this province. Nova Scotia has trained hundreds of continuing care assistants who want to stay here and work on the front lines, but instead many are trapped in a backlog. People are waiting months or even years, unable to work, and some are forced to leave Canada altogether, taking their much-needed skills with them. I have tabled more than 200 emails from people left behind by this program from across all sectors, and I implore every member to read them. These are real people with skills, experience, and much to offer our province. It is a cruel irony that this government campaigns abroad to recruit workers from overseas while allowing those who are already here and trained here to be pushed out by red tape. Thank you, Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Inverness.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to say happy birthday to my son, Colin. He's a great guy. Better than I can say in 2 seconds. Thank you.
Great timing, honourable member. Orders of the day, oral questions put by members to the minister. The time is now 10 o'clock. We will finish at 10:50. I recognize the honourable leader for the official opposition.
Madam Speaker, this government is projecting a record $1.2 billion deficit. And meanwhile, families are spending $400 more a year on power bills. It's now more expensive to live and commute in Nova Scotia than it is in Toronto. The average Nova Scotian's rent has gone up by nearly $4,400 per year. Half of Nova Scotian workers are being paid less than a living wage, and most of these workers are women. My question is, what do Nova Scotians have to show for this historic deficit?
I recognize the honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And of course, every single dollar of that deficit is invested in Nova Scotians, supporting Nova Scotians. We're trying to fix the messes that we inherited in healthcare and housing, and we will continue to invest in Nova Scotians, and we won't be shy about it, Madam Speaker. But I would just remind the member that those investments went to healthcare, those investments went to rental subsidies, those investments went into affordable housing, and those investments went into cutting taxes, Madam Speaker. And every time we tried to make one of those steps to support Nova Scotians, the NDP stood up and voted against it, Madam Speaker. We will not give up on Nova Scotians. We will continue to support them despite the objections of the NDP.
I recognize the honourable leader of the official opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. They also seem to have gone to a number of untendered contracts and handshakes in the Premier's office. According to an RBC poll, Nova Scotians believe that cost of living is the most important issue. Among Atlantic Canadians, almost 75% feel financially paralyzed and are struggling to manage daily costs. 64% say that they are spending all of their income on bills and essentials, and over 60% say they worry they will never get ahead financially. This government can congratulate themselves all they want, but under their watch, Nova Scotians are falling behind. What does the Premier have to say to the hundreds of thousands of Nova Scotians who worry that they will never get ahead?
We're 2 questions in, and it's already coming close to that line. Yeah, I would prefer that it not. Thank you. I recognize the honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think the NDP know what they talk about with handshake deals, Madam Speaker. Nova Scotians will remember what happened in this province when the NDP was in government. And in case they forget, I'll just say, now boarding. You know, for a party that has so much baggage, Madam Speaker, they were elected on a promise, the NDP, that one time, of no new taxes. What's the first thing they did, Madam Speaker? Increase taxes, Madam Speaker. Then they got cozy with Nova Scotia Power, traveled around on the private jets with Nova Scotia Power, Madam Speaker. We will stand up for Nova Scotians, and Nova Scotians know that, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable leader of the official opposition.
Sounds like the Premier's getting close, too. Listen, if we want to talk about campaign promises, let's talk about order-making powers for the Information and Privacy Commissioner and protecting Nova Scotians. Let's talk about reinstating school boards. Nova Scotia has the highest poverty rate in the country. There hasn't been a poverty reduction strategy since 2009. The number of Nova Scotians living in poverty has increased by 59% since this government was elected. With spending at record levels, people are falling further behind. Madam Speaker, my question to the Premier is, what is the plan to help the increasing number of Nova Scotians living in and falling into poverty?
I recognize the honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we know Nova Scotians are struggling. That's why we're doing all we can to support them. That's how we have a deficit, Madam Speaker. We'll continue to support Nova Scotians. It's also why we instituted a school lunch program, Madam Speaker. That lunch program has delivered over 4 million lunches at this stage, I think, Madam Speaker. Guess who voted against it, Madam Speaker? The NDP. Madam Speaker, I'll remind, if we want to talk about election promises, Madam Speaker, I'll remind the member that we were the only party that talked about raising the minimum wage during an election campaign, Madam Speaker. The only party that stands up for Nova Scotians, that's the PC party. They can try to claim that mantle, but actions matter, Madam Speaker, and I'm proud of our actions.
I recognize the honourable leader of the Liberal Party.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we spent much of the week talking about Nova Scotia Power and the impact rising rates will have on families, but it's not the only utility looking for a hike. Halifax Water is asking for a 37% increase over the next 2 years. While it is a municipal utility, one of the main drivers is aging infrastructure, something the province can help with. What action is this government taking to support Halifax Water with its aging infrastructure so that families don't shoulder this massive increase?
I recognize the honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We can get the exact number, but I believe it's over $250 million that our government is investing in infrastructure. And my message to Halifax Water is very simple: do better. So many times people had to boil water advisories. Not the time to be coming back to Nova Scotians asking for an incredible increase like that. Do better, Halifax Water. Do better, Halifax Regional Municipality Council, on taking care of them.
I recognize the honourable leader of the Liberal Party.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Back in May, we wrote to the Minister of Public Works asking his department to invest a portion of the $170 million it is receiving from the Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund to help Halifax Water upgrade its systems. Without that support, families in HRM could see their water bills jump by $300 a year. To date, the minister hasn't said how the fund will be used. I'll ask the Premier directly, will he direct the minister to invest some of this infrastructure funding to Halifax Water to prevent families being hit with hundreds of dollars in extra costs?
I recognize the honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We know the infrastructure needs across this province are very significant. There was a long period of time under NDP and Liberal governments where infrastructure investments weren't a priority. We're trying to catch up on the infrastructure deficit. We're looking carefully at the needs, and we'll do what we can for sure. And in terms of supporting Nova Scotians, this is why we cut taxes, Madam Speaker, $500 million tax cut. This is why we removed the bridge tolls, Madam Speaker. This is why we have free parking at the hospitals. We are doing what we can to support Nova Scotians because, Madam Speaker, we want to build up this province. Despite those that want to block us at every step along the way, we will continue to build up this province because we're the builders and they're the blockers, Madam Speaker.
recognize the Honourable Leader of the Liberal Party.
Well, the Premier drives the 104 to Halifax every day, and that was a pretty significant infrastructure project under the last government, Madam Speaker. And this government's done an awful lot of ribbon cutting over the years on projects that were approved before them. Madam Speaker, the Premier has said he doesn't want to see costs downloaded onto families. Well, that's exactly what will happen if this government doesn't act. Halifax Water is in front of the UARB right now asking for a 37% rate hike increase, and the province isn't stepping up to the plate. Will the Premier commit today to working with Halifax Water and the municipality to find a solution so families aren't left to pay the price of government inaction?
I recognize the Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And the province will be intervening in that process before the URB. But we'll work with anyone who puts the interests of Nova Scotians first. Anybody who puts the interests of Nova Scotians first, that's who we want to work with, Madam Speaker, and we've shown that time and time again. Thank you.
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was going to continue to ask about this record of spending, but I think that my colleague raises a really important point about Halifax Water and about infrastructure. So the first campaign promise that this Premier made was to double the population. And so we brought a whole bunch of people to Nova Scotia. Now, tens of thousands of them are stuck in administrative limbo around their immigration status. More and more of them can't get to work every day because of transportation. And now our infrastructure is failing. What is the Premier going to do other than be disappointed to ensure that Halifax Water's infrastructure will be up to the task and we won't pay the price?
Order. I recognize the Minister of
Municipal Affairs.
Municipal Affairs.
Madam Speaker, I'm very pleased to talk about infrastructure. We have invested steadily as a government over the past 4 years. We've invested over $250 million in infrastructure across all 49 municipalities, including HRM, and we will continue to do that. We recognize the infrastructure deficit that we have inherited as a government, and we are working hard to meet those needs of ordinary Nova Scotians for water, for sewer, for sidewalks. We're recognizing how important these items are to building the homes that we need in our province.
I recognize the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the federal government has had housing enabling infrastructure funds available. There is nothing that enables housing more than water. And we know that our water infrastructure is failing, particularly here in HRM. This government is apparently quite good friends with their colleagues in Ottawa. Have they made a formal request for significant infrastructure investments like Quebec did to fix the water problems we have and enable more housing?
Yeah.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Municipal Affairs.
So, Madam Speaker, just for the information for the member and for the House, the Invest in Canada Infrastructure Fund has expired about 3 years ago. I can tell the members that every Minister of Municipal Affairs across the country has repeatedly asked Ottawa for a new fund. Yesterday, I was on a Teams call with the Minister of Finance, Francois Philippe Champagne, with other ministers of finance across the country. We again reiterated the pressing need in every province for infrastructure spending, and we again asked Ottawa with the soon upcoming federal budget for another reinvestment like the ICIP program for infrastructure in every province. Every minister's been.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax-Armdale.
Madam Speaker, yesterday the Health Minister said there were 30 new med students at Cape Breton. Excellent news. However, the reality is it'll be 6.5 years, approximately July of 2032, before those medical students are eligible to practice medicine in Nova Scotia. The family crisis is here now. As we sit here, there are tens of thousands of Nova Scotians without a family doctor. My question to the minister is, can the minister tell us how many doctors are needed during the next 6 years in order to provide Nova Scotians with a family doctor and access to care before 2032.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, of course, there's workforce planning that's happening not only in the Department of Health and Wellness and the Office of Healthcare Professional Recruitment, but also with our operators as well. We're really pleased with our recruitment efforts, number one, and with the new program that's in conjunction with the College of Physicians and Surgeons called PACE, where we can take in internationally educated physicians and train them, making sure that their competencies are such that they can work in Nova Scotia. And we expect that we can take about 45 physicians per year through that program. It's incredible. We have record number of physician students in our med schools. We have a new med school. We're looking at increase. We're on the move.
Order.
Right.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax Armdale.
Madam Speaker, statistics from the College of Physicians and Surgeons in Nova Scotia show as of March 31st, 2024, 43% of all doctors in Nova Scotia are over the age of 50, so approximately 1,300, and 20% are over the age of 60. I happen to be one of those trying to fill gaps in rural Nova Scotia. This makes me question if the Family Practice Registry will ever get to zero. What is the government's plan over the next 6 years? Should all Nova Scotians expect to get a family doctor under this government's term, or should some Nova Scotians just accept the fact they will not get a family doctor in the next 6 years?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, of course, we have a significant focus, not only in family physicians, but in primary care in general. Nurse practitioners are also part of the mix who are able to deliver comprehensive care to Nova Scotians. We are building teams across this province so that people can go through one door and get the care that they need. We have seen over 70,000 people come off of that list in the past year. People should feel very confident in their ability to seek primary care. And if there are episodic issues or if they're not currently attached, there are 70,000 appointments more every month where people can access care in this province. Almost 1 million appointments a year for 1 million people. Thank you.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Fairview Clayton Park.
To the Minister of Labour, Skills and Immigration, Nova Scotia is losing out on good workers and good neighbours. Last year, more than 600 provincial nominee applicants saw their work permits expire before their cases were ever processed. How can this government promise more faster while their delays are leaving hundreds in limbo?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Labour, Skills and Immigration.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Nova Scotia is working to keep our residents here. At the same time, we're truly focused on processing right now, which is in healthcare and construction, some other critical sectors. And I'd like to say, just add to this that, we're looking at the healthcare recruitment that we've been doing and the successes that we're building on. In 2024, Nova Scotia approved more than twice the immigrant applications for construction workers and over 30% more in healthcare, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Fairview Clayton Park.
There's proof that's been tabled that due to this government's delays, we are missing out on healthcare workers. We are missing out on construction workers. We are missing out on service workers. We're training them here and then letting them go. How does this government expect to provide healthcare, build homes, and boost tourism when we're letting hundreds of workers slip through the cracks?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Labour, Skills and Immigration.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wholeheartedly disagree with that comment. While I can't speak about individual cases on the floor, we are doing a lot with recruitment of healthcare and construction workers, and the numbers coming in so far this year, it's good, it's working. Thank you.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Chignecto Isthmus is Nova Scotia's most critical trade corridor, but protecting it has already been delayed for years. When this government first came into office in 2021, we were told it would take 10 years. Now they're into their 5th year of governing, and we're still being told it will take 10 years. There's no clear public timeline. There's no milestones. There's no assurance of fair and open tendering processes. We've read the Auditor General's reports on the Hogan Court debacle, on the recent report on long-term care beds, and the lack of following laws on proper procurement and more. Madam Speaker, will the minister guarantee full transparency on the Chignecto Isthmus project, assuring us of fair tendering processes?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Public Works.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There's so much work happening in the Chignecto Isthmus. We're working on the Isthmus, and of course, all of our tendering processes are fair, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm not sure if maybe the minister hasn't read the AG reports that I have, and encourage him to do so. And in the words of the Premier, I think this government needs to do better. Do better on the Chignecto Isthmus. Not only is it important to the area of the people that I live, this ensures all Nova Scotians live in a province that does not become an island. The Premier likes to talk a lot about his prized Wind West or Energy East partnership. But if the Chignecto Isthmus fails, that project is also in trouble. So, Madam Speaker, will the minister admit that without urgent action and full transparency on the Chignecto Isthmus, their so-called nation-building project will be built on unstable ground in an unstable future? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Public Works.
Madam Speaker, what I will admit is this government is doing everything we can do to protect Nova Scotians, Madam Speaker. We recognize the importance of the Isthmus. We recognize it so much, Madam Speaker, that the Premier took a full day to travel with me to look at the Isthmus. And
keep going.
And, Madam Speaker, if the member doesn't feel that there's much being done, check the video and maybe share that video with her constituents to show what's being done at the Isthmus. The Isthmus is being looked after, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax Armdale.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, at a recent health committee this year, we heard from Dr. Alicia Hawker, who works in addiction medicine. She told us that many of her patients are not on the family practice registry as they can't access the registry for many reasons. This raises the question, does the minister have any estimates of how many Nova Scotians do not have a family doctor and are not on the family practice registry?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So there's a number of ways that Nova Scotians can access care, and we're certainly very, grateful for the work that happens with addiction medicine, particularly the MOSH unit, who reaches out to people who are particularly marginalized and perhaps are not attached to a family practice for a number of different reasons. But there are access points for people across this province. We work very hard to make that need a family practice registry very accessible to folks. You don't need to just sign up online. You can call. There's a number of different ways that people can access care. We continue to work with providers to understand the clientele that they're working with in order for us to enhance services wherever we can.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax Armdale.
Madam Speaker, yesterday the minister said that if a person has been on the family practice registry for a long time, it's generally because of a breakdown in communications. I agree. That is so true. We recently heard from a senior who experienced just that. After calling to find out where her husband was on the list, the person was told the husband was not on the list, even though he had joined 3 years ago. They were never contacted. He was just removed. A true breakdown in communications. This raises for me and many Nova Scotians, how can Nova Scotians have any confidence in the government's published attachment numbers when we know the family registry is so inaccurate?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think Nova Scotians should feel very confident. We have invested an incredible amount of money in order to support healthcare access in this province. We have recruited physicians. We have expanded our workforce in nursing and all of the allied healthcare professions. We have moved that list from simply an Excel spreadsheet to a registry. People do have a responsibility to call in and make sure they're on the list, and when that happens, or on the registry, when that happens, we work very hard in order to attach them to the appropriate care provider. There's a number of options, including primary care clinics, which will follow people until they are permanently attached. And if anyone has any questions or wants to check, certainly they can call 811 to find out what their options are.
I recognize the honourable member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Peer.
Speaker, some seniors in Cape Breton public housing had to wear their winter jackets inside last year because the heat wasn't working. And I'll table that. They've been left without proper outdoor lighting, without a safe pathway to their common areas, and with repairs that take months to complete. With another winter around the corner, can the minister responsible for housing explain why this government is leaving Cape Breton seniors in the cold?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Growth and Development.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I want to reassure all Nova Scotians that we're there for all tenants in our Nova Scotia Public Housing Agency units, the more than 12,000 across this province. I've been made aware of this particular situation, and understanding that my staff, or the staff through the agency, have actually, taken action. They actually went out, when we're made aware of this, they went out and started addressing some of these situations, Madam Speaker. It highlights the need to reach out to the district office and bring these to the attention of the staff. And, the staff are very committed to support these tenants in their best interests. Thank you very much.
I recognize the honourable member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Peer.
Madam Speaker, these residents have done all that. I've spoken to residents in my riding who have done all of that. And what they hear is that they don't have the money, housing does not have the money to do the work that they need to do. I've spoken with seniors who are living in moldy rooms, seniors who can't cook on broken stoves, seniors whose ceilings are falling in, seniors who need flashlights to get around their home. This government needs to step up and make sure this public housing is actually livable. I suspect the minister responsible for housing wouldn't be living in an apartment with mold, broken appliances, or lights that don't work. Why does he expect Cape Breton seniors to?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Growth and Development.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And certainly to insinuate that our public housing units are inhabitable, I'd say is a far cry from the truth, Madam Speaker. We are there to support Nova Scotians. We're there to improve certainly the infrastructure that's there, Madam Speaker. Over $48 million in last year's budget, Madam Speaker. Another $62 million in this year's budget, Madam Speaker. Again, we need tenants to come forward and share concerns that they have, Madam Speaker. But certainly, if ceilings are falling in our public housing units, I'd certainly encourage the member to reach out directly to the department and make sure we can address that. Thank you very much.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax Needham.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The end of the month is coming up, and that means rent is due for hundreds of thousands of Nova Scotians across this province. That includes residents of the Scotian apartment building who were without power for more than 2 weeks. They were living in an unlivable situation, yet they're still expected to pay rent in full. Madam Speaker, my question is to the minister responsible for residential tenancies. Does the minister think it's fair for renters to pay for housing that they couldn't safely use?
I recognize the Honourable Minister for Service Nova Scotia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank the member opposite for this important question. And so, Madam Speaker, we do have the residential tenancy program, which I would encourage all tenants who were tenants of the Scotian to come forward if they still have any questions, Madam Speaker. I do know through conversations from the residential tenancy team that they have also spoken with tenants to make sure that they know what their rights are, Madam Speaker. I do know that through the team that some of those tenants were able to reach out to the landlord directly and be able to find a resolution. But Madam Speaker, again, if any tenant in the province has a question, come forward to our team, ask your question, because we can find a resolution through mediation. And if it has to go through a hearing, Madam Speaker, then that is the process to bring forward concerns. And I would encourage Nova Scotians to have the right and accurate information.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax Needham.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And with all due respect, the minister was aware of the concerns, and the RTA was also aware. And here we are at the end of the month, and these folks are going to have to pay full rent for a unit that was unlivable. So instead of helping renters at the Scotian, this government passed the buck to the residential tenancy system, a slow-moving system that is toothless because this government refuses to create an enforcement unit that everyone agreed upon. So, Madam Speaker, when will renters at the Scotian get the rent back they deserve for living without power for more than 2 weeks?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Service, Nova Scotia.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And again, I want to encourage the tenants of the Scotian to come forward with any concerns that they have, to speak to the residential tenancy team, put forward an application if that's what's needed, but we can work together to find a resolution, Madam Speaker, and that is the process. If any tenant in the province has a concern or a question, they can come forward and contact the residential tenancy team, Madam Speaker, to find a positive resolution. Thank you.
Yes. I recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And my question's for the Minister of Public Works. I ask this question not only on behalf of the 2,000 plus signatories along Prospect Road and all the residents there, not only because this is a major regional road of importance where we have the increasing capacity of all of HRM's compost going to that facility, increased industrial park there, and the major route that goes to the #1 tourist destination in the province of Peggy's Cove. So my question is, I appreciate the minister coming out to take a tour with me with his chief engineer. The traffic study now admits that we do need significant improvements to create new major roads in and out of the Prospect Road communities. My question is, when will the minister release the findings of that traffic study? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Public Works.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'm very pleased to answer the question for the member opposite. And it was a pleasure to go out to visit with the member and the probe group on Prospect Road with Mark Peachy, Chief Engineer. We saw the concerns directly. As the member mentioned, the report has been released and I believe has been reviewed with the member and the members of probe. And it recommends a phased approach, Madam Speaker, and we're willing to work with the community to get some stuff done out there.
I recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the answer, and we want to continue to work on this issue, not only because of the projected growth, but it's a safety concern, and that's the primary reason. Ever since the last 2 or 3 years, we're seeing increasing times where the road is completely shut down, and people have to go all the way around to your riding, Madam Speaker, to get out. And so we want to work on this. We want to see the study officially released. So I want to request what everybody's asking for is to actually implement the findings of the study. When will the minister commit to the capital and 5-year plan to build a new entrance and exit out of the Prospect Road communities? When will they be not blockers?
Even I need a second to laugh for that one. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Public Works.
Madam Speaker, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about all the building that's going on in Nova Scotia this year. $500 million in road work. 3 years, Madam Speaker, of 100 series paving in a 1-year span, Madam Speaker. But specifically to the member's question, Madam Speaker, the study recommends a phased-in approach. We're going to do that. Immediately, we're looking at the intersection access at Prospect Bay Road and also optimizing the signal timing at St. Margaret's Bay Road. These are short-term initiatives that we can do right away, and there are long-term objectives like a new entrance at the 103, Madam Speaker, and we're working on that in our planning processes. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Thank you, Speaker. Overtime pay kicks in at 40 hours in the majority of Canadian jurisdictions, including BC, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Newfoundland and Labrador. Our Make It Happen Premier has boldly proclaimed in this House, if it's good enough for another province, it's good enough for Nova Scotia. But here in Nova Scotia, you have to work 48 hours before you make a dime of overtime pay. This government is fond of saying the best social program is a job. So why do they make it harder for Nova Scotians who work long hours to get ahead?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Labour, Skills and Immigration.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank the member for the question. We're working hard to keep the working conditions in Nova Scotia, which is fair, which is stable. We're always evaluating what's happened in other jurisdictions, and we'll continue to monitor that. Thank you.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Thank you, Speaker. The fact is this province has some of the most egregious overtime pay loopholes in the country. At a time, this minister stands on a record of prioritizing construction workers and immigration. Some workers in Nova Scotia, like construction workers, don't even get overtime until they work more than 110 hours over a 2-week period. When will the Minister of Labour admit that these labor code loopholes show a profound lack of respect for the hard-working Nova Scotians we rely on to build up this province?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Labour, Skills and Immigration.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll remind the member over there, I am a construction worker as well, but again, we're always evaluating, always looking at the landscape and doing jurisdictional scans and seeing what's out there, and we'll continue to evaluate. Thank you.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm having a hot flash. This government scrapped the Coastal Protection Act and dumped responsibility onto municipalities, even though towns and counties have no authority over many infall and rock wall projects. The Ecology Action Centre describes what's happening to our coastlines as death by 1,000 cuts, and I'll table that. Can the Minister of Environment tell us why this government is leaving municipalities to clean up the province's mess?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, coastal action is a shared responsibility. We have a very comprehensive, strong coastal action plan. 10 out of those 15 actions in the action plans have been implemented. And one of the key things that has been implemented is working with our municipalities to develop the example bylaws, along with providing funds to the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipality so that they have access to the experts so that municipalities are able to develop these example bylaws. We believe the approach of informed decision-making is the best path to take, Madam Speaker, and working with our municipalities, we are encouraging the municipalities, do not let your residents build in unsafe areas. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier.
Speaker, an act is stronger than a plan. Municipal leaders say they don't have the resources or the tools to stop harmful infill projects, even when the residents are pleading for action. Yet, this government shrugs off its duties and tells them to figure it out themselves. Will the minister admit that offloading coastal protection to municipalities is nothing more than abandoning our coastlines to unchecked development?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I categorically reject the assertion of that member with respect to us abandoning anything. Rather, we're moving forward, working with our municipalities. Just last April, with CBRM Mayor Cecil Clark, we announced the example bylaws. We are partnering with our municipalities through the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities. Madam Speaker, we trust Nova Scotians. We trust Nova Scotians to make an informed decision. We recognize our municipalities are the lead on the developing the bylaws to ensure residents do not build in unsafe areas. And Madam Speaker, we have deployed resources immediately to ensure residents do not build in unsafe areas, and we'll continue to implement the action plan, and we'll continue to support informed decision making. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Halifax-Chebucto.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I've heard from families in my riding about overcrowding at the Oxford School. Because the gymnasium is at capacity or over capacity, some students are going to gym class in a cramped classroom in the basement without so much as a basketball hoop. My question is, what is the minister doing to fix this situation at Oxford School?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development.
I want to thank the member for bringing this question forward, Madam Speaker. We'll reach out to the Regional Centre for Education, who oversee class sizes and the management of the schools. But what I can tell you what this government is doing is we're investing over $1 billion in 5 years on new schools, and we'll continue to invest in schools right across this province.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax-Chebucto.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the Minister. There's been a lot of growth in my riding with new buildings under construction. Meanwhile, Oxford School is already bursting at the seams. We need new schools sooner rather than later, but the delays with the new building for SJAM have showed that how long that can take. Parents want to know, does this government have a plan to ensure Oxford School will be ready to accommodate the future students that really need it?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Development.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And the truth is there's a process here. I would encourage the staff, the principal at Oxford School, to reach out to the RCEs and have it put on a list. And we'll do an evaluation of the school to see what kind of shape it's in. And Madam Speaker, we'll move forward with the community and the MLA on the future of Oxford School.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Back to the Chignecto Isthmus. This is hurricane season, and here in Nova Scotia, we've experienced Hurricane Dorian, Hurricane Fiona in recent years. We know the Chignecto Isthmus protects critical infrastructure for electrical utilities, communications, telecommunications, Trans-Canada Highway, our railway, and if it floods, which it is being predicted to do, and if our supply chain breaks, Nova Scotia is in for economic catastrophe. So we need to get the work done. And I'm wondering if the minister today can tell us what is the timeline currently. Are we looking at being done in 10 years from now, 15 years from now? What is the current timeline?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Public Works.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And the member keeps asserting that nothing is being done at the Chignecto Isthmus. There is plenty being done at the Isthmus. We understand the importance of the Isthmus, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's very concerning that now this is my second question, and we've had no commitment from the minister of what the timeline is. What is the actual timeline? And I believe, Madam Speaker, we need more transparency and accountability on this very important project for people of Cumberland County, but for all Nova Scotians. I believe there should be a website. There should be quarterly updates. There should be milestones. This should be taken seriously. There should be proper project management on the Chignecto Isthmus project with clear timelines and accountability, also on the tendering processes. So, Madam Speaker, will the minister, once again my question is, what is the timeline and when is it predicted to be completed?
I recognize the Honourable Minister for Public Works.
Madam Speaker, as I indicated earlier, there's a video. A video explains everything that's happening at the Isthmus right now. Madam Speaker, we're working hard, and we would encourage the member to share that video. And what we will commit to is maybe we'll do quarterly videos to update the member. Thank you.
recognize the honourable member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Thank you, Speaker. Yesterday, this government loudly promised regulatory reform to support the economy, saying the way things are just isn't working. Workers in Nova Scotia could not agree more. Recent Labour Board cases involving workers at Global Empire Corporation and Arbuckle Media show that our Labour Standards Code is outdated and makes it hard for workers to collect wages they've rightfully earned. If this government is acting quickly to help businesses, why is it ignoring workers unprotected from predatory employers?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Labour, Skills and Immigration.
While I can't speak about specifics here on the floor for any specific case, we are working hard. We are working hard for workers. We are out there. We are doing things. Yeah, leave it at that.
I recognize the honourable member for Sackville-Cobequid.
I guess governmenting is hard. The fact is, our current legislation means workers are getting robbed. Despite the Labour Board ruling in their favor, dozens of people are out thousands of dollars in wages due to legislation that's been unchanged for 5 years under this government's watch, despite its deficiencies. The government's moving to support businesses as it should. But workers need protection from wage theft, and their calls have gone ignored. When will this government update one of the weakest labor standards code in the country to ensure workers actually get paid for the work that they've done?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Labour, Skills and Immigration.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, we are looking out for workers. We are evaluating. We're looking at other jurisdictions stuff. And if the member was so concerned about workers, why did he vote against the minimum wage increase?
I recognize the honourable member for Dartmouth North.
Madam Speaker, under this government, power bills for the average family have increased by $400, and with another 8% rate hike coming, power bills are about to get even more expensive. This government has also allowed Nova Scotia Power to pass the cost of the industrial carbon tax to ratepayers through the fuel adjustment mechanism. This is a tax that is meant to be paid by industrial polluters, not the people of Nova Scotia. When will this government ensure that Nova Scotia Power can't pass the cost of the industrial carbon tax on to ratepayers?
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member opposite for the question. And we've taken extraordinary measures as a government, Madam Speaker, to ensure that Nova Scotians and ratepayers are always at the front of mind. I can think of the $117 million financing that we made to buy the fuel adjustment mechanism, Madam Speaker. That prevented a 7% increase in rates for ratepayers, Madam Speaker. I can think of this $500 million loan guarantee that we helped negotiate, Madam Speaker, that prevented a 26% or a 19% increase in rates, Madam Speaker. The facts matter. We prevented a number of different rate increases, Madam Speaker, and we'll continue to do what we can for Nova Scotians.
I recognize the honourable member for Dartmouth North.
Madam Speaker, the minister can, give us the laundry list of what has been happening, but the fact is, people's power rates continue to skyrocket, and Nova Scotians are seeing increases of over $400 since this government took power. So something is not working. In 2022, an Associate Deputy Minister at the Department of Environment and Climate Change indicated to the Halifax Examiner that the federal industrial carbon tax would raise power bills by 7% over 3 years because it is allowed to be passed on. When this government passed legislation in 2022 to cap power rates, they didn't cap those rate hikes. Will this government today commit to protecting Nova Scotians and make Nova Scotia pay their own taxes?
Order. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Energy.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, we know affordability is top of mind of Nova Scotians, and it's top of mind of this government as well, Madam Speaker. I can think of the $500 million in tax savings that we've put on for Nova Scotians. And Madam Speaker, that's not just for 1 year, that's for continuation every year, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, the proposed $150 million one-time, Madam Speaker, to help savings for Nova Scotians. I don't know about your math, Madam Speaker, but $500 million, a lot more than 150, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Thank you, Speaker. I wrote to the Minister of Education earlier this month and never got a response, so I'll try it here. An 8-year-old student at a school in my constituency has celiac disease. Because the school food program doesn't provide safe gluten-free meals, students with celiac disease are forced to go without. I'm wondering if the minister can explain why children with celiac disease are excluded from a program that's supposed to be universal.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank you for the question. It gives me a moment to talk about the great success of the Nova Scotia Lunch Program, which they voted against, Madam Speaker, which has served 4.7 million meals right across Nova Scotia, Madam Speaker. We're going to continue to roll out. We spent the last summer listening to children, adjusting the menu, and we'll continue to do that, Madam Speaker. I encourage the members to look at the new menu, including the chicken nuggets.
Order, please. Order. The time allotted for oral questions put by members to the ministers has expired. Government business. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to make an introduction.
Please do.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, the boss is in the house. My daughter, Kate, is the boss. My wife, Suzanne. But I do want to mention a couple things about my daughter, Kate, while she's here. She's in her final year at East Antigonish Academy in grade 12. Already accepted into St. X in Antigonish. Wants to study medicine. She's a solutionist. And she's here this weekend for the Maritime Major Girls Hockey League Showcase. It's happening at the Dauphiny Centre on the campus of St. Mary's University. All the top teams from across the Maritimes are here. It's her final year with the Northern Selects, final year of minor hockey. I had the tremendous privilege of coaching her for many of those years. And I just want to say that since she started, we've seen tremendous growth in female hockey in that time. She is part of a group of young female hockey players that has ensured that girls starting out today no longer have to see themselves as female hockey players. They see themselves simply as hockey players. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Welcome to the House. Congratulations and good luck. I know you got this. I recognize the Honourable Member for Yarmouth.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg leave to make an introduction.
Please do.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In the gallery today, I have with me Don Cleary. Don is a resident of Yarmouth, one of the most kind and caring people you will ever meet. And only knowing me a few days, Don spent the entire month of November in a van on some very cold days campaigning, and I just want to thank Dawn personally and welcome her to the House.
Welcome to the House, and we hope you enjoy your time here. I recognize the Honourable Deputy House Leader.
Speaker, would you please call the order of business public bills in order?
Public bills and orders. I recognize the Deputy Honourable House Leader.
Speaker, would you please call public bills for second reading?
Public bills for second reading. I recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, would you please call bill number 141, municipal modernization?
Bill number 141. Municipal modernizations. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Madam Speaker, I move that Bill number 141, an act respecting municipal modernization, be now read for a second time. Madam Speaker, I do have a few words to say about it, but I'm interested in hearing the comments of my colleagues in the House, so I will listen to their comments and make some comments after I hear their comments. So I look forward to the debate on this bill. Thank you.
Good job.
I recognize the honourable member for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Peer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was hoping the minister might explain more before opening the debate up about this bill. So, Madam Speaker, I had some time since getting this bill yesterday to talk to some of my municipal colleagues in CBRM to see if they knew anything about this and could provide further information. And they were surprised by this bill as much as I was. So, in my reading of the bill, I feel like there were some significant red flags here. The bill is just another example of this government pushing aside municipalities from what I've read, and it's a clear intrusion on their jurisdiction. Of course, there isn't time, this isn't the first time, Speaker, that we have seen this kind of overreach. Municipalities were not pleased when this government introduced Bill 24 in the spring. This government gave themselves order-making power over municipal infrastructure. We've seen this come up in an issue already. Municipalities are now worried that they can't make decisions about their communities, even though that is what they were elected to do. I'm sure if this government wouldn't be pleased if a higher level of government, say the federal, took decision-making powers away from them on significant projects. I think the shoe was on the other foot, it'd be a different story. They'd probably be pretty upset. And that's reasonable because we are elected by the people to do a job. You could argue that this bill, like Bill 24 before it, gets in the way of the job of a municipal council. This bill raises the significant issue of transportation in Nova Scotia. It's still hard for people to get around, and too expensive. That's because this government has failed to invest in transportation solutions people need. For years, advocates have been calling for updates, but they have not gotten the support to make it happen. There have been no significant updates in transportation despite our growing population. People need new and better options to get around. But the best way to get them through is through collaboration between the provinces and the municipalities. Nova Scotians are not best served by this government's overreach, but they are best served by collaboration. This government says that the bill is necessary to improve transportation in the province. I'm not sure if that's true, but I would like to hear feedback about this. We need to hear from municipalities, councillors, wardens, mayors about how this bill will impact their work. We need to hear from the business community about what kind of uncertainty this creates. Uncertainty isn't good for business. We need to hear from transportation advocates about how this will impact the significant transportation projects we need. Speaker, Nova Scotians want all levels of government to work collaboratively on projects that matter to them, projects that will make their lives better. This will make their cities and all of Nova Scotia a great place for families, business, and communities to grow. I look forward to hearing the feedback about this bill when it comes before public bills, and I look forward to hearing comments from the minister with regards to the rationale for this bill. Thank you.
I recognize the honourable member from Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And there's a number of parts to the bill that speak to different things, and there's some pretty good stuff in there. Especially, I'll start with what my former colleague Ben Jessam was asking for assiduously in the House, where he asked for the tax relief for the dwellings that have been destroyed by natural disasters. And so I think that we have broad support from that in the House, and I guess what we would say is about time that we see that coming through, and commend the government for following through on that. The issues around the Transportation Corridor Control Act and looking at transportation corridor lands, I am cautiously supportive of looking at that to expedite ways that we can build around major corridor routes. I think I can't speak against something that may facilitate some of the things that I'd like to see in and around prospect communities in terms of new major access roads. So if used properly and respectful of constituents and landowners and environment, I think that could be a powerful tool to get things built. And so, but we're going to watch what the Nova Scotians say at public bills and see what issues they have with some of that, and then we'll have further to say in future readings. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
If I am to recognize the Minister of Municipal Affairs, it is to close debate on Bill 141, the Municipal Modernization Act. I recognize the Minister of Municipal Affairs.
So, Speaker, very appreciate the comments from my colleagues in the House, and certainly I will be reviewing them as my staff will in terms of the content. The bill, I can assure the members of this House that our municipal partners remain very important to us. We are, as a department, we're constantly in conversation with them. There's a number of different elements in this bill. I just want to highlight a couple. We're giving municipalities the power in the case of a natural disaster, which we are not defining. Municipalities will be able to define that, to reduce taxes for when homes are lost, rather than having a one-off bill, which we had a year ago for the victims of the fires in Tantallon and the Shelburne area. So I think that's important. We're modernizing processes. We're giving municipalities the ability to accept electronic payments of tax sales. We're making changes recommended in the Municipal Elections Act. For example, the voting day, if you turn 18, currently if you turn 18 on the first day of voting, you can vote, but if you miss that day, the normal voting day, you've missed your opportunity. We're changing that to parallel other rules for other levels of government and elections. If you wish to have your name removed or obscured from the total public voting list, we're enabling that. It has to be done on request. This is a recommendation from the Mass Casualty Commission and our gender-based violence work, that this ability be there for some people who may request that. So we're enabling that. We've included some things to clarify the rules around special planning areas and the minister's responsibility and rules. And obviously the Transportation Corridor Act, an important act which is really part of the work of Link Nova Scotia, which, as we see a growing province, we know there will be more demands on transportation in the future. We believe this province will grow. We're optimistic about growth in the province. We're trying to enable that. A couple more things. Cogswell Energy District, at the request of HRM, we're enabling an increased participation in that. And finally, Speaker, we are working to speed up critical child care facilities in Nova Scotia. So currently, the province has a number of child care facilities. If we build a child care facility, it kind of is exempt from municipal bylaws. We're creating that exemption for other child care facilities, much like we did for healthcare facilities last year, to enable the child care facilities to be built quicker. So with those few words, Speaker, I move second reading of Bill 141.
The motion is to close second reading for Bill 141, the Municipal Modernization Act. Would all those in favor please signify by saying aye? Aye. Contrary, nay. Motion is carried.
Bill 141, an act respecting municipal modernization.
Order that this bill be referred to the Standing Committee on Public Bills. I recognize the Honourable Government Deputy House Leader.
Speaker, would you please call Bill number 144, Workers' Compensation Act?
Bill 144, the Workers' Compensation Act, an act to amend. I recognize the Minister of Labour, Skills and Immigration.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I move Bill 144, the Workers' Compensation Act, an act to amend, now be read a second time. I want to thank the many Nova Scotians whose input helped shape this bill, the workers, the employers, the stakeholders across this province. This bill includes practical changes that will make workers' compensation fairer and stronger for everyone. I look forward to hearing from my colleagues on this important legislation.
I recognize the Honourable Member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise to discuss Bill 144, updating the Workers' Compensation Act. I want to acknowledge off the top that this bill contains some positive and much-needed changes for workers. Modernizing the workers' compensation program in Nova Scotia is long overdue, and it's something that the NDP caucus has been calling for many years. I want to focus first on what we view as net positives as a result of this legislation. One, a positive change contained in this bill is an update to benefit rates. Indexing WC benefits to inflation is unquestionably the right thing to do, and we applaud this aspect of the bill. For decades, Nova Scotia has been the only province where rates were indexed to half of inflation. That's gone on for far too long. Workers and families deserve benefits that allow them to get by and keep up with the cost of living. Not indexing these benefits to inflation meant that benefits effectively were cut year after year. It's past time for this change to be implemented, and I wish that the government was making this effective immediately. Implementation of these changes will be delayed until 2027, and at a time that we're very deeply concerned on both sides of this House about affordability, I would urge the government to look at making these changes effective immediately so that relief for families on benefits takes immediate effect. I also want to recognize that we are seeing Department of Natural Resource firefighters finally receiving benefits that they deserve. I think we all recognize that the important contribution and role of DNR firefighters has been on full display with the ongoing Long Lake fire this summer. We know that as a major fire threatened the safety of Nova Scotians and the Annapolis Valley region, DNR firefighters were on the front lines, and all of us stand behind them and thank them for their impressive work, not only in Long Lake, but in other locations across the province this summer. Their efforts played a major role in helping save many homes and keep danger at bay. As they continue to work on the Long Lake fire, digging in for the long term, I'm very encouraged to know, as is my entire caucus, that they will soon have access to protections that they have long deserved. I do want to draw the House's attention to some improvements that remain outstanding. New Democrats have been listening to workers and their concerns about the Workers' Compensation Board and program for many, many years. The long overdue report in 2024 on WCB just showed just how far behind Nova Scotia has been with respect to other provinces. We have the lowest coverage rate in the country. There remain 110,000 workers in this province who could be covered by WCB but continue to go without that protection and coverage. It's a significant issue for 1 out of 10 Nova Scotians working in this province. Workplace protections under WCB are vitally important. This government should act to extend protections to these folks as soon as possible. The NDP will continue to fight alongside of workers without access to these benefits until we see that protection realized. One thing I want to raise as a necessary amendment, I don't think that this miss is intentional, but I do want to flag it here formally as part of debate. The legislation as proposed aims to remove Clause 32. Clause 32 being removed contains a requirement for hospitals that treat a worker injured in a workplace event to report the death of such a worker to the Nova Scotia Labour Board. Now, I heard in the bill briefing that the employer of the deceased worker has a duty to report, but my concern lies in that duty not being enshrined in legislation. In Nova Scotia, we passed the Westray Bill 21 years ago, and it was hailed at the time as a major advance in protecting workers at a time that Nova Scotia had an abysmal rate of workplace deaths. So while that bill is an important piece of protection for Nova Scotian workers, I draw to the House's attention that 21 years later, we still have not successfully prosecuted a single workplace death for Nova Scotians since that point in time. And so my concern is that absolving hospitals of a duty to report the death of a worker, if there is no legal requirement for employers to have to report the work to the Labour Board, we may not see employers who have had workers die on the job under their watch, who may be very well culpable in those deaths. They may not act swiftly or decisively in a timely way to report those deaths to the Labour Board and give themselves an unfair advantage in preparing a legal defense should they be charged under the Westray Bill. So this is one piece of the legislation that I have concern about on behalf of Nova Scotian workers. I think government should be acting to strengthen protections for workers and make sure that employers who bear responsibility for the death of their employees in the workplace are held to legal account when that occurs. With that, Speaker, I don't want to sort of leave this on a note. I do want to reiterate that we welcome many of the changes that are contained in this legislation. We certainly have had conversation with folks in leadership on the board of the Workers' Compensation Program. We know that they stand behind and support these changes. So on the whole, we view this as positive, but we do want to raise this one matter. We think this deletion leaves open a loophole which could be exploited by employers to the detriment of protection of workers. And we look forward, as this bill moves forward through the legislative process in the House, the opportunity to collaborate with the government on closing this loophole and being able to celebrate an overall positive slate of changes for the workers of Nova Scotia. Thank you, Speaker.
I recognize the honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and we support the bill. Currently, Nova Scotia has the unenviable position of having the highest WCB premiums in the country while also having some of the worst service, and this has been a challenge for decades in our province with such a massive unfunded liability that successive governments had to come to grapple with and try to deal with the financial constraints within the organization. And so when we see the adjusting of benefits going up to keep up with inflation, helping workers on the job, that's a positive thing. We're also obviously glad to see an extension to DNR firefighters for presumptive coverage, cancer coverage, and that follows along some of the other adjustments that have been made over years for the previous firefighters and before that for things like PTSD presumptive coverage that happened under the McNeil government. And so this is a continuation, I think, of some positive movement, and we need to continue to work on making sure that we improve the financial footing of the organization and ensuring that employers have fair premiums and that we continue to expand coverage where it's needed for Nova Scotians to be able to go to work and feel safe in their workplace. So with that, we'll support the bill and look forward to comments on public bills.
If I am to recognize the Honourable Minister for Labour, Skills and Immigration, it will be to close second reading. I recognize the Honourable Minister of Labour, Skills and Immigration.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank our colleagues for their feedback, their input, and their support of this bill. This is a good bill for workers. I'll have more to say after public bills. So with that, I rise to close debate on Bill 144.
The motion is for second reading of Bill 144, Workers' Compensation. Would all those in favor of the motion please say aye? Aye. Contrary-minded, nay? The motion is carried.
Bill 144, an act to amend Chapter 10 of the Acts of 1994-95, the Workers' Compensation Act.
Ordered that the bill be referred to the Standing Committee on Public Bills. I recognize the Honourable Deputy House Leader.
Speaker, this concludes government business for today. I move that the House do now rise to meet again on Monday, September 29th, between the hours of 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. Following daily routine, government business will include second reading.
The motion is that the House rise to meet again on September 29th between the hours of 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. Would all those in favor of the motion please say aye? Aye. Contrary-minded, nay? The motion is carried. We stand adjourned.